Here's a sample of what you'll hear on this episode of Holistic Health Matters.
Most everything I learned in my dietetics program was completely outdated based on bad information, and that I was actually eating myself into death.
Welcome to the Holistic Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing health potential in body, mind, and spirit so that we can pursue the abundant life more effectively. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, naturopathic doctor and biblical health coach, and this is episode number 34. Time for the Apple Podcast Review of the Week. This one is from Sweeney McMahon. He says, "When I began listening to this podcast in late December, I cherry-picked a few episodes to determine if the focus matched my interest and quickly discovered that the breadth of subject areas beneath the holistic umbrella made this show essential listening. Listener kudos to David Sandstrom." Thank you, Sweeney McMahon. I receive that. It warms my heart to see that you're getting value out of the show. HM community, those types of ratings and reviews are a huge source of encouragement to me. I'd love it if you'd go to Apple Podcast or iTunes and leave a star rating and a quick review. It not only encourages me, but it helps other people find the show as well. Now, leaving a review can be a bit confusing, so if you're not real familiar with the Apple Podcast or iTunes platforms, you can go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/review, and I've got detailed instructions on how to leave a rating and review. Thanks in advance. This episode is brought to you by U.S. Wellness Meats. Our bodies have to take what we eat and turn it into us. All of our 75 trillion cells are constantly being replaced through a series of divinely complex processes. If we don't give our bodies the raw materials they need to replace cells efficiently, they struggle. The number one rule for healthy eating is eat food as close to its God-given natural form as possible. The trouble is, when we shop at the grocery store, it's hard to find quality animal products produced the way God intended. Factory-farmed food is just not healthy for us. That's why I've been protecting my family's health for many years by shopping online with U.S. Wellness Meats. They deliver quality animal products straight to your door. They have pastured grass-fed beef, free-range poultry, sustainably raised pork, raw cheese, and more. If you're ready to take your health to the next level with quality products, head on over to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources. Click on the U.S. Wellness logo. Right now, for the HM community, my listeners, they're offering 15% off your first order. So head on over there and make a purchase today. You'll be supporting the show financially by using my affiliate link. You won't pay any more, and I get a small commission. Today we have on the show a very interesting person. Her name is Jackie Nelson Walburn. She has an amazing story with a dramatic turnaround in her own health. She was suffering from more than 15 different conditions, including kidney failure, diabetes, chronic fatigue, eczema, allergies, asthma, arthritis, obesity, and more. Now, she had a bachelor's in nutrition and dietetics, but what she discovered was what she was taught in school wasn't going to help her any. She went to the doctor, and the doctors told her that she's just getting old. So she set out to learn all she could about natural and holistic health on her own, and one by one, all the conditions she was suffering from just went away. Now she's a holistic health coach with a focus on nutrition, and she helps other people recover their health as well. I think you're going to be inspired by her story. So let's jump right into my conversation with Jackie Nelson Walburn. Jackie, welcome to Holistic Health Matters.
Hey, thank you for inviting me. I'm so honored to be here.
It's my pleasure. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What was your journey like getting into natural and holistic health?
Well, I've been having symptoms most of my life, didn't know what they were or how they were related to anything. But when I got older and I went through menopause, all of a sudden, all these health issues started accumulating on me to the point of which I had 15 different conditions that were taking me down and taking me out. And I basically was looking at 5 or 6 years to live 5 years ago. My kidneys were failing. I was at almost stage 4. I was urinating blood. My liver was failing.
Wow.
I had diabetes. I had obesity. I had chronic fatigue. I had eczema, I had allergies, asthma, arthritis. I mean, the list just goes on and on.
Oh, my goodness.
I kept going to the doctor saying, my blood sugar's going up every year. My blood sugar's going up every year. What's the problem? What's going on? What can I do to stop this? Telling them all my things. And the regular doctors say, there's nothing we can do for you. There's nothing we can do for you. You're just getting older. Finally, when I hit diabetes, I said, that's it. I've had enough. I need to find a solution for myself. And so then I dove into all the research. And since I have a bachelor's of science degree in nutrition, I decided to go in after that. And I found all this research and found out most everything I learned in my dietetics program was completely outdated based on bad information, and that I was actually eating myself into death.
Give us an example of something that was outdated that you learned in your bachelor's degree.
Well, when I went through my dietetics program, they were teaching the food pyramid, which many of us were related to as far as what we grew up with, because for 50 years they pushed this food pyramid on everybody that was high in grains and carbohydrate diet.
Right.
And what we found out recently, as far as the research goes, is that the guy who did the study, his name is Keys, he was commissioned by the government. He was the low fat guy.
Right.
He was commissioned by the government to come up with a nutrition plan for everybody to get our health. He did a study of 50 different countries and started checking what they were eating and who was healthy and so on and so forth. And he was sure that the low-fat, high-carb diet was the answer. So he dropped all the countries that didn't fit that parameter out of the study and only kept the ones that fit his narrative.
Right.
And then he designed the food pyramid based on that, not realizing that not everybody can handle all those grains. Very few people can handle all those grains.
Right. The guy you're referring to is Dr. Ancel Keys, and he was a very dynamic personality, very influential. And he started out with 25 countries in his study and ended up publishing his 7 countries study, and he eliminated the ones that didn't support his hypothesis. And that was that when we consume saturated fat, it's like pouring cold water on fat and trying to flush it down the drain in the sink that is going to clog up your arteries. A lot of problems with that hypothesis, right? Human body is not a sink. It's not a drain pipe. Fats and oils behave very, very differently inside the human body than they do a drain pipe.
Well, it's not just that. It's all foods, because we've been taught to think that it's calories in, calories out, which does not give you quality versus quantity. That's like saying that if you eat only 1,000 calories of Twinkies every day is the same thing as 1,000 calories worth of apples every day. When your body is not a physics lab, it's actually a biochemistry lab, and your body is going to do different things with what you eat depending on what it needs.
You know, it's pretty amazing how many people have bought into that theory, though, isn't it? You know, it's a grade school kid could figure that out, that a calorie from a banana is not the same as a calorie from a potato, or it's not the same as a calorie from a T-bone steak. But that's what the medical science has been teaching, the dogma that they've been preaching for a lot of years, hasn't it?
Oh my gosh, it's been, again, ever since I even started studying. 40 years ago when I went through dietetics, that's exactly what they taught and how to help people lose weight. And that was the paradigm. And the paradigm is still there. There are still people still pushing that, doctors included, telling you to eat less, exercise more, when it's a complete farce.
Right. Yep. Human body is far more complicated than that.
I actually eat more now, and I lost 90 pounds.
So what was the main thing you did to help you recover from all the things you were suffering from?
I had to give up all forms of gluten, all grains. I had to reduce my carbohydrate intake down, and I had to get rid of dairy until I did all the research. And I really, reading the research, I'm like, this can't be right. This can't be right. This is against everything I believe, everything I ever taught, and so on. And basically I said, okay, I'll do an experiment to prove it. And so I eliminated gluten. to start with, saying, okay, let's see if this works. And I just eliminated wheat gluten to start with.
Uh-huh.
And it was like I lost 20 pounds in 30 days.
Wow.
And I started feeling fabulous. And it's like, oh my God. And I'm like, okay, what's next? So I went to the next thing, which were all grains that have some form of gluten in them. And then I lost another 20 pounds in 60 days when I gave up all grains, because they all have a form of gluten in them or cross-react as gluten in the body if you're sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, okay, what's next? And I went, okay, low carb. Okay, maybe my body is carbohydrate intolerant. Maybe I'll try doing that. So I dropped my carbs down into a keto range, and I lost another 20 pounds in 60 days. And it was like, and all my conditions are now starting to reverse and go away and disappear. And then I said, okay, what's left? And I went, okay, dairy. Oh gosh, that's the hardest one because cheese is like my favorite food in the whole wide world. What am I going to do? And I was using whey protein. And so I'm like, okay, I'll try vegan cheese and go away from that. And I'll switch over to almond milk, and I'll switch over a bone broth protein powder instead of a whey protein powder. And I lost 30 pounds in 60 days just from getting rid of dairy.
Wow. So we have 30, 30, 20, 20. I mean, I'm trying to add it up here and trying to do the math. That's about 100 pounds you lost?
Well, 90 pounds. It was 20,
pounds.
20, 20, 30. So I lost 90 pounds.
Okay.
And I've now maintained that loss for the last 5 years.
Excellent. Good for you. And how are you feeling?
I feel better than I have since I was in high school.
That's awesome.
I have more energy. I have more vitality. All the brain fog, depression, all sorts of things that I was going through all have gone. I mean, they're just not there anymore. It's fabulous. I just love the world. I'm full of life and love and happiness and joy. And it's just incredible that it could make that much of a difference.
Well, that's a really inspirational story, Jackie. And I want to get into more of the details, but I just wanted to share this. And for the listeners, the regular listeners of the program, they know this. But I wanted to share this with you as for your listeners as well. It's my contention that we maximize our health potential when we align our lives more fully with God's design for spirit, mind, and body. And of course, the body includes nutrition. And it sounds like your issues were mostly nutritionally based because you adjusted what you ate, what you put inside your body, and your body responded in a very positive fashion. I think you're a living example of how important the physical side is and how important nutrition is to the physical.
But I'm going to add to that and say that once you take care of the physical, it frees up your mind to be able to pursue the spiritual. If your body is so distracted and so falling apart that your focus is there all the time, distracting you from other things, you can't raise your consciousness awareness into the spiritual world because you're being bogged down by the physical.
That is an excellent point, Jackie. And I make that point in my book, The Christian's Guide to Holistic Health. If you read through the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you see Jesus healing people of their infirmities and feeding them. Over and over, we see this happening. Why was he so focused on the physical? I think it's because of what you just said, because when you're dealing with hunger or back pain or migraine headaches or, you name it, fill in the blank, it's difficult to move into the mental, emotional aspect and the more important spiritual aspect of the human condition. So Jesus had a message for the world that was going to save their souls, but he knew that if they were distracted with the physical, that's where their focus would be. They wouldn't be receptive to his more important spiritual message. And I think you just summed that up very well.
Oh, thank you. That was absolutely fabulous. Here's another side of the story, too. If I'm a big fan of Dr. Francis, who actually came out and said that all chronic conditions can be linked to three things, three categories. And nutritional deficiencies is the one he has on the top of his list, followed by toxins, followed by low-grade infections. And so, again, the reason we have essential macronutrients and micronutrients is because they are essential to the body's performance on the physical plane, which means that if you are lacking in something of those vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, or essential amino acids, your body is struggling to function, and it's going to pull it from wherever it can get it just to get you through until the next dose comes in. But if you're chronically deficient, you're going to be looking at failures of pathways to health being able to actually do their job.
Absolutely. And one of the more important pathways is our detoxification pathways. And we use up micronutrients during the detox process. So your body, if it doesn't have the raw material, it struggles with that detoxification, which is one of the three you just mentioned.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Plus your energy production, the making of your hormones. We're talking about thyroid. We're talking about your sex hormones. We're talking about your neurotransmitters that are made from your microbiome in your gut when you feed it the right things. I mean, the list is endless.
Yeah, that's really good. What can people do to help identify their nutritional deficiencies?
Well, there are plenty of things online as far as you can look up nutritional deficiencies. I know I have quite a few graphics in my storage here on my computer and such. It gives you a list of foods. If you look up each of the essential nutrients, they'll give you a list of those foods, and it'll give you a list of symptoms or what they actually are involved in, or symptoms if you are lacking. It's quite a long list, so I can't really go into any particular details, but
I know that was maybe perhaps an unfair question. It was so broad.
Not unfair, but we can tell people, that they need to do their research. They need to educate themselves. But a good multivitamin that is a whole food vitamin is going to be something, vitamin minerals, that's going to be a good starting point.
Yeah.
And then making sure they're getting the essential fatty acids that are necessary. Again, Eat Fat, Get Thin, awesome book. Fat for Fuel, awesome book. We need fat in our diets, and we need omega-3s is probably the ones that people are hearing the most about these days. And then there's things like other forms of fat they're finding are actually good for weight loss and such like that. And it actually, again, eating fat actually helps you lose weight.
Yes.
It's important that people recognize that there is huge amounts of stuff in the essential macro and micro nutrients. Yes, a good starting point is to get a good whole food multivitamin on their list to start meeting those nutritional deficiencies. And they may be so deficit that it takes a good 60 to 90 days of taking a regular supplement to even just replete anything that has been depleted before they actually start functioning properly again.
That's good advice. And I would add to that, get away from processed foods. One of the most foundational nutritional principles you can embrace is to eat food as close to its God-given natural form as possible. Single ingredient foods are best. The more man gets his hands on our food, the worse it is for us. Minimally processed food is close to its God-given natural form. That's a great place to start. And good supplement regimen is also helpful, right?
Well, let's get a little more in depth there. That was perfect. Thank you. I was just starting with the multivitamin to start and then going to go into dietary foods. What most people don't realize is that flour is highly processed. Salt, table salt, is highly processed.
Yes.
It's missing all of the natural things that are found in real sea salt or real pink salt. Flour, people think, oh, I'm going to eat whole grain bread. No, that's still processed.
Absolutely.
Oh, I'm going to eat whole wheat pasta. No, it's still processed.
Yes.
Anything that you're buying already made is processed. If you really want to have these foods, your pastas and your breads and such, you would have to go further back upstream to get the stuff that needs to be made. I make my own stuff out of actually taking almonds and grinding them into flour, or coconut flour, organic stuff. Of course, organic, you have to, because the detox stuff needs to happen. You can get your own non-grain flours that you can still make breads and things with on your own. So that's, if you feel like you have to have those things, there are alternatives out there that are available. I find the biggest problem or biggest thing I have with compliance with my clients is that they don't want to give up all this processed bread or processed pasta. And there are plenty of alternatives if you are willing to make your own so that you are staying closer to source. But yes, part of our deficiencies, I believe, is energetically in the foods that we eat. They are so depleted of God's energy as far as absorbing from the sun and the soil and having their life force. You have to eat foods that are fresh from like farmers markets and things so that they actually still have life source in them for you to be able to absorb that. That's another possible issue that many people may be not addressing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The research is piling up. Eating a paleo or ketogenic diet is powerfully health promoting. In order to eat this way, you're going to need to get your hands on some quality animal products. Don't try to go paleo or keto on low-grade factory-farmed meats. That can cause more problems than it solves. I've been getting the bulk of the meat and poultry my family consumes from U.S. Wellness Meats for many years. Your farmer needs to have both the knowledge and the resources to produce quality animal products. U.S. Wellness has both. I interviewed the CEO of U.S. Wellness, John Wood, on episode number 11. That episode is one of the most listened to episodes I've done. Cows are ruminant animals, which means they have multiple chambers to their stomachs. The Bible refers to these animals as ones that chew the cud. God designed cows to graze on grass in the pasture. The grass is then thoroughly digested in the cow's numerous stomach chambers. The problem is, factory-farmed cows are almost certainly fed a genetically modified, corn-based feed. Grains create a highly acidic environment in the cow's digestive system. This inhibits efficient digestion and alters the omega-6 to 3 fatty acid ratio, which turns this otherwise healthy meat into a semi-junk food. Not only that, meat from grain-fed cows have almost no CLA, or conjugated linoleic acid, which is important for burning fat and building muscle. Don't be fooled by low-quality grocery store beef that's labeled grass-fed. A lot of games are being played in the industry. All cows are grass-fed at some point in their lives, but ignorant or maybe even unscrupulous farmers finish their cows on GMO corn-based feed. Finished means 90 days prior to processing, the cows are shipped off to a feedlot where they're confined and given easy access to grain-based feed, which is an unnatural food source for a ruminant animal. This causes the omega-6 to 3 fatty acid ratio to shift from the healthy 2-to-1, which is the same ratio we find in healthy foods such as wild-caught salmon, to more like 10-to-1. A 10-to-1 omega-6 to 3 ratio is pro-inflammatory, and inflammation leads to all kinds of health challenges. So, if you care about your health, use my affiliate link. You won't pay any more, and you'll be supporting this podcast financially when you do. Go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources, click on the U.S. Wellness logo, and place an order for the highest quality, best tasting animal products you've ever had. Right now, for the HM community, my listeners, they're offering 15% off your first order. So go ahead and place an order today. And now, let's get back to the show. I want to back up just a moment for something you just said was, I think, really important, and that is people have a hard time getting rid of the grains. You know, if you have a sensitivity to gluten, you would probably benefit a great deal from eliminating grains. But people have a hard time. They have gluten denial. They don't, it's too good. I get too much of a rush from eating that. But here's one of the things I like to tell people. You will feel better than that food tastes. Give it a week. See what happens. When that ball starts rolling on your improvements to your health and well-being, your physical, your weight, your mental, emotional conditions all starts to be uplifted, then you become a lot more motivated for, well, you know what, maybe I can live without gluten.
You know, and we can go even further than that, as far as we could go into how wheat is produced in this country, as far as being a hybrid, so that it has a foreign gluten that our bodies don't recognize, and it stimulates our immune system.
Right.
We could go into the fact that they're actually using large amounts of pesticides to actually dehydrate it and keep it from rotting as it sits in the grain mills.
Yep.
Promoting it's high in mold. So you're looking at the pesticides that are actually, I don't know if we should mention any names here, but what they're spraying it with actually is an antibiotic was actually patented originally as an antibiotic. So it's going to kill off your microbiome. And then it's high in mold. So you're going to get mycotoxins that are going to flood your system. The actual gluten in there actually crosses the blood-brain barrier and the inflammation with it that stimulates your pleasure centers so that it's actually as addictive as sugar and can it feeds the wrong things in your microbiome so that it's sending signals to your brain craving more. Not only does it stimulate the opioid centers in your brain, but it also, the bad bacteria and fungus in your gut that are eating it are also sending out chemical signals to your brain telling you need more, which is why so many people have so many cravings that they can't really explain why they have to have it and how they feel when they eat it. But then they don't also recognize, how it's pulling them down until they remove it. You go through sugar withdrawals. That's part of the problem, the reason that people can't get very far. So there are other things you have to do to get over the sugar addiction.
Right. Well, I think what we're getting into right now is the mental emotional component of eating. This is because eating has a strong emotional component to it, right?
Absolutely.
Well, if we have a goal and we can identify the reasons why we want to recover our health, that helps a lot in motivating us towards that goal, pulls us closer to it. If we get in touch with our why, then we can find our way, and we'll find our way to healthier eating habit patterns.
Oh, that is beautiful. And the funny thing, my why, I don't want to die.
That's a good place to start.
I don't want to feel bad anymore. I want to feel as good as I feel now for the rest of my days. Uh-huh. And so, yes, you have to have a why. And I always go over that with my clients is, why do you want to change? Why do you want to go on this journey? You have to have a strong enough why. You have to write it down, put it on the fridge, so that every time you think about cheating or you think about going back, you look at your why and you say, I'm not going there. I don't want to be that person. And you actually, I want to be able to play with my grandkids and my great grandkids. I want to be able to continue to hike. I want to be able to continue to play tennis or go on bike rides, or I want to be able to continue to have cognitive function. And I don't want to decline like my parents did with Alzheimer's and whatever else their why you can come up with. I want to lose the weight and feel great, whatever, why you want, because yes, even a slight fallback into, well, I feel great. Let's see what happens if I do this. And then you've undone months of work. And it's like, no, you have to have a strong enough why that you will never go back once you start feeling good.
Absolutely. Amen, sister. That was well said.
Oh, thank you.
I'm thinking most young women, when they're going to get married, they have a why of, I want to look good in my wedding dress. and they're able to lose some weight, right? For the most part. I mean, they can do it what they really want to, right? So we have to want. But what they do
in the process is they hurt themselves because they go on a low-calorie diet, which crashes their metabolism. They lose a little bit of weight in the beginning to get there, but then they've crashed their metabolism, and then they go back to eating, and they start packing on the pounds, and they don't know why.
Takes us right back to the bad science from the American Dietetic Association.
Yes.
They're listening to the wrong sources of information.
Exactly.
You just mentioned, Jackie, something that I really want to dive into a bit, and that was Alzheimer's disease. One of the things that a lot of people are struggling with these days is insulin resistance. We've all heard of type 1 diabetes, where the pancreas is not producing insulin, so you need injections. And then type 2 diabetes is when you develop enough insulin resistance to where you can't control your blood sugar. Well, now the literature is pointing to a type 3 diabetes, which is where our brains are suffering from a type of insulin resistance. And I want to point the listeners to a study I found that was published in the Journal of Diabetes Science and Technology. And here's what they said. Currently, there is a rapid growth in literature pointing toward insulin deficiency and insulin resistance as mediators of Alzheimer's disease type neurodegeneration. So could you speak a little bit to that? Because nutrition has a lot to do with that.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because most people don't realize they're not looking at their blood work themselves. They're just letting the doctor tell them that they're normal. But again, my doctors kept telling me, you're normal, you're normal. And I'm like, but my blood sugar's going up every year. There's something wrong here. There's something I need to address. There are different authors out there. I particularly like Dr. Perlmutter.
He's fantastic.
He's got a book out there, and he specializes in the dementia, the type 3 diabetes, dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's, and what can be done to mediate that by changing your diet and your lifestyle, and goes into a ketogenic type diet as well as intermittent fasting. What are the proper optimal ranges of blood sugar so that people can know exactly where they are? Because if you're running over 90 on your fasting blood glucose, you're already pushing that envelope that's going to push the insulin resistance and going to start crossing the blood-brain barrier and cause issues there too.
Yeah, I love Dr. Perlmutter. He's on my list of dream guests. I have a list of people I'd like to get on the show, and I'd love to have him on the show one day because he is an incredible brain and incredible advocate for a healthy lifestyle. He's amazing.
Yes, absolutely. He's one of my favorites as far as his book, as well as his approach and putting the research out there to show that you can actually make a dent in symptoms and progression by changing lifestyle and doing other things. And it's important, but people who want to prevent it, I know for myself, I do not want to live a declining health life.
Right.
And so it's very important for me to keep my blood sugar regulated. And of course, my diet and lifestyle changes have done that for me. From being diabetic, I'm all the way back down into the 80s, which is considered optimal. And I'm still, even after 5 years, I'm still carbohydrate intolerant. That's in my DNA, actually. That was the interesting part. I did a DNA program that did all my reports, and I found out that I have immune issues with gluten. I have immune issues with carbs, actually stimulating my immune system, making me carbohydrate intolerant by genetics, as well as finding out I have all these other issues around diet. I have other things I can't process. I have methylation pathway issues. I have to take extra amounts of CoQ10 because I don't process it properly.
Let me interrupt you there. Getting into the genetic component of this is probably better saved for another whole podcast because that's a pretty deep discussion.
Yes, it is.
And it's all individual. But let's say someone has moderate elevated fasting glucose. Let's say they're in the 90s or 100s or 110 range. What can that person do to help basically nip it in the bud before it becomes problematic?
Well, I'll refer to Harvard's Diabetic Center, who actually take people in for a period of time and regulate them with doctors and everything else who are using a ketogenic type diet to actually help people get their blood sugar back down and get them off of their medications and everything else by using diet as an intervention, diet alone as an intervention. On my program, I call the clean green keto because there is dirty keto and then there is clean green keto. And with clean green keto, that means that you're going to be getting like 8 to 10 servings of vegetables a day with your that are low carb, as well as meeting all of your other nutritional needs. Because again, the greens or the vegetables are where all of the nutrients are. So, of course, that's going to help meet your nutritional deficiencies better than anything else. It has to be done, though, with the multivitamin, of course, too. Basically getting off the grains because grains turn into sugar. Sugar gets in your bloodstream, causes your insulin to spike, your blood sugar to spike, your insulin to spike, causes fat storage, causes triglycerides. It's all connected. So by decreasing your intake of carbs decreases the amount of insulin required for you to be able to process any of your carbs. And therefore your body starts to adapt to being a fat burner so that you can actually start losing weight and reducing your blood sugar. And your body, your liver will keep your blood sugar into a normal range by using glycogen storages and things like that. And it has the ability to actually transform, your body does, to transform other things into glucose if it needs to, like amino acids and such, until it adapts to burning fat as the primary fuel. that's the easiest way, because basically it's a blood sugar issue and a insulin resistance issue back to toxins, because there are many steps involved in processing glucose into ATP cell energy. And all those pathways take vitamins and minerals and different cofactors to be able to process. And so if your body is being bogged down by toxins that interfere with those pathways, then you now have an energy issue. So you're tired, your cells are starving, but yet you have all this sugar in there that's being turned into fat.
You mentioned a moment ago, Jackie, the book Fat for Fuel by Joe Mercola. And I've read that book, and I think it's an excellent book. And if someone wants to dive deeper into the science behind the mitochondria and how our cells make energy and what to do about it, that's an excellent read. It's not a light read. I mean, it's not bathroom reading, but it's an excellent book. But what I'd like to do for the purposes of our discussion today is sticking with the low-hanging fruit. Let's get into some more of the specifics. For instance, what are some of the higher carb sources in most people's diets that they may not realize that are something is high in sugar?
Well, the obvious things are going to be your breads and your pastas. But as far as your high carb vegetables go, you're looking at things like potatoes. You're looking at, again, rice is still a grain. Of the gluten grains, we're looking at wheat, rye, barley, oats, corn, and rice. So those are things that are all high in carbs. They also have some form of gluten in them as well. Those are all things that are very high in carbohydrates that are sugar. But what some people don't realize when they're trying to get off of sugar is they don't realize, again, you have to read the ingredient labels to look for it. You have to learn some of the names for different types of sugars. You can grab a jar of pasta sauce and you can find sugar added to it. Most people don't realize even something like Gatorade has high fructose corn syrup, which has been proven to be toxic to the human body. But it's corn syrup, it's syrup, it's sugar.
Not to mention the food coloring.
Yeah, well, exactly, plus other things. But anyway, and people don't realize, too, that juice is pretty much pure sugar. If you're doing any kind of fruit juice, and if you're doing too much fruit, I can't handle a banana. That's got too much sugar in it for me. It spikes my blood sugar. It's too much. Other types of fruits, mangoes, you can do berries. Berries are considered a low sugar fruit. So are melons, so are citrus, but not juice, but citrus. But as far as, because the fiber is attached to the sugar in these fruits. So therefore your body digests them very slowly and doesn't absorb all of it because most of it's fiber. So those are your best way to go there.
Yeah, that gets back to eating food in its natural form. We can eat an apple, maybe two, but to make a glass of apple juice, we'd probably have to juice 8 or 10 apples, and we would never consume that many apples or oranges, for instance, in one sitting. So if we go back to healthy eating rule number 1, eat food as close to its God-given natural form as possible, it will take care of a lot of issues. Another thing that you just mentioned I'd like to just hit again, and that is the fiber content in food will slow down the glucose spike, as well as fat and protein. If we include some fat and protein in that meal, it will slow down the rise in blood sugar levels. When you go to a restaurant, what's the first thing they do? They give you a bowl of bread. People are eating a super high carb source of food, and they don't have anything in their stomachs. It's about the worst thing you can do. So if you had to have the bread, you're better off eating some protein first and then adding the bread in later.
Yeah, it was actually Dr. Mercola who suggested, I did a nutrition profile with him, and he said, I definitely need to eat all of my protein at the beginning of my meals and save everything else for the end.
Yep.
So that was his recommendation to me when I sought out his counsel.
Wow. Did you go to his clinic?
No, it was an online questionnaire quiz that you answered some questions, and then he sent you back your profile for what is your nutritional type.
Yeah.
And that was the recommendations for the way that I answered the quiz.
Okay. So your eating plan, you call it the clean green keto. Is that right?
Yes.
So what's the difference between clean green keto and regular keto?
Regular keto is very broad term for a high-fat, low-carb diet, which means that you could eat 2 pounds of bacon a day and consider that keto, but that's not balanced. That's not going to get you the nutrients you need to be healthy. That would be what I would call dirty keto, because it's not giving you any clean sources of actual nutrient dense food. Keto is not a high protein diet. People think that it means you're eating a lot of protein. You're not. You're eating a lot of fats, but those fats come in forms that people will like, I think, because basically what I do is I make my own aioli sauce, or I make my own dressings and other types of sauces that I put all over my salads and all over my cooked veggies, even on my meats. I cook in avocado oil or olive oil or coconut oil. Everything gets cooked in oil, so I'm getting that fat in my diet as well. People want to know, they can go to Dr. Mercola's Chronometer.com, and that's a place where you can put in everything you eat, and it will tell you what your macros and your micronutrients, all the way down to the amino acids and all the way down to your salt intake, everything. Every vitamin, every mineral, everything is in there, and it'll tell you how you're doing. And it'll make suggestions for what you need to change. I did it for like a week when I first started my journey. Mm-hmm. And I got to a point where I figured out exactly what I need to do to be able to meet that requirement every day, so that I no longer have to actually do it. But for about a week is all it takes to learn the difference. Oh, wow, I shouldn't have eaten that. Oh, this is perfect. Oh, this is good. Okay, now I know how much I need. So I know basically how much oils and things I need to get in a day to get my proper amounts of fats in, and how many carbs I can eat in a day. And if I eat too many at one meal, then I have to cut back on another meal so that I keep my daily total in the range. For me, the ideal sweet spot seems to be about 75 grams of carbs a day, which is a little over what is normally considered keto. Some days I do more, some days I do less, but 75 seems to be my sweet spot.
And I think that's a good way of putting it, is each person's going to have their sweet spot. There's going to be some ranges. Everybody's an individual, so they have to do a little experimenting. I've been to Chronometer myself, and it looks like an excellent resource. I didn't have the time to sit down and really learn the program, but it looks like it's a great resource. Another one that I would offer the listeners is nutritiondata.com. If you want to learn something about a specific food, it gives you all the breakdown, macronutrients and carbs and protein, amino acids. It's broken down very, very well. It's actually put together by WebMD, which is a medical source, but it's a really good source if you want to learn something about a specific food.
Perfect.
So tell us a little bit about your book. I'm assuming some of your recipes are in your book.
Well, actually, interestingly enough, the book was accumulation of about 15, 20 years worth of research that I did. I went in and I started, well, gosh, I need to talk about diet. I need to talk about foods that actually help with different conditions. And so I need to talk about the nutritionals, the nutritional deficiencies that may be involved. So for example, if you go into my book and you look up under the condition of constipation, I will give you a list of botanicals that you can take to help remedy that on a short-term basis. Also give you foods that will help with that, and also different nutritionals. For example, Dr. Osborne, one of my favorite people, says that you can actually do a colon flush with high-dose vitamin C. And there's a nice, easy way without drugs, without stimulants, to actually clear out when you're having issues going to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. And of course, there are different types of enemas and things like that you can do, which are also listed in there. But so I've taken each condition. I have over 60 in the book, and I've given you the nutritionals, the botanicals, and the foods that are possibly could be used to help you in your situation. That's basically the book overall.
All right, very good. And the book is called Heal Thyself Naturally. Where can people find your book?
It's on Amazon.com under that title.
Okay, very good. And then if someone wants to get a hold of you personally, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Okay, so my business is Real Health Solutions. I have a website, Real Health, SOLNS, which is the abbreviation for solutions.com. I also have a Real Health Solutions with Jackie Facebook page where there's a contact form in there as well. I also have on my website a membership site for educational material with free information. Let's see, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Yelp, I'm on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel, lots of places. I'm everywhere.
Thank you so much for being here. We could go on all afternoon.
Fabulous. I really enjoyed our time, and yeah, I could just go and go. You were fabulous.
Thanks, Jackie. All right. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Jackie Nelson-Walburn. She's a shining example of how powerful nutrition is and how it can impact our health and well-being. By giving our bodies less of what they don't want and more of what they need, you can dramatically transform your health. And she's a shining example of that. Please keep in mind that this show is brought to you by U.S. Wellness Meats, producers of the highest quality, pastured, grass-fed, and grass-finished beef, free-range poultry, sustainably raised pork, raw cheeses, and more, all delivered straight to your door. You can find them by going to my website, davidsandstrom.com/resources, and click on the U.S. Wellness logo, and you'll be redirected to their website by way of my affiliate link. When you make a purchase that way, you'll be financially supporting this podcast. You won't pay any more, and they share a small commission with me. Right now, for my listeners, the HM community, they're offering 15% off your first purchase. So check them out. You won't be disappointed. Also, at my website on the show notes page, you can find links to all the resources we mentioned and a transcript there you can download or read it online. And I've always got some type of free download there as well. So once again, thank you for listening. I appreciate you. I enjoyed serving you, and I'll talk with you next week. Be blessed.